I think the recording is breaking now. Can we
Suleiman,
begin?
your voice is breaking, Suleiman. We just wait a few more minutes, no? So only I'm just reminding in the group. Hello, Sneha.
Greetings to everyone present today in the 20th Journal Club of Pan India. I am Sneha and I'll be giving a small introduction for the Pan meeting. Prevention being always better than cure is the fundamental idea of the Pan organization. It is a highly spirited and growing team working towards an approach to build a network globally and nationally to improve the nutrition system with the power of right dietary choices and to prevent diseases. To reach out nationally and spread this positive movement, Pan India was established in September 2022, with the chronic diseases, cardiovascular diseases, diabetes reaching new heights. Pan India has an aspirational approach. We organize polls, quizzes, feedback forms, query answered questions, and journal clubs to disseminate this information to a wider group, especially through the means of social media platforms like WhatsApp, Instagram, and LinkedIn. The PAN team is headed by our director, Dr. Rajni Shahini, also houses really spirited volunteers, interns, and ambassadors, which include a broad spectrum of professionals, right from medical student in med school to working doctors, nutritionists, and much more, all with the goal of improving the broken nutrition play. plate, and moreover, it includes all of you who attend the PAN events and form the backbone of methods to spread our message. As it's quite evident, the team is showing a positive growth, so anyone interested in the same goal towards improving the knowledge on dietary choices, we welcome you to join and to be a part of this movement. The journal club sessions will be led by medical students. With this brief introduction, I now invite Ms. Shobhiyaa, a final year MBBS student from Amrita Institute of Medical Sciences, Kochi, and Ms. Sansrity, a third year MBBS student from Amrita Institute of Medical Sciences, Kochi, to present today's journal club paper on the topic dietary intake of total animal and plant proteins and risk of all cause cardiovascular and cancer mortality. Over to Shobhiyaa.
Thank you, Sneha, for the introduction. So, the aim of this presentation is going to be to explore how total protein intake and specifically animal versus plant proteins impact the overall mortality and the risk of major chronic diseases. In 2024, the global death rate was 7.76 deaths per thousand people, which shows a slight increase compared to 2023. At a global level, non communicable diseases are the dominant causes of death. In fact, 7 of the top 10 causes of deaths in 2021 were non communicable diseases. That's about 68% of all the major causes worldwide. The most common causes are heart diseases and cancers, both of which are strongly influenced by dietary patterns. Mm. This is important because it emphasizes how nutrition and lifestyle choices directly shape the mortality trends. However, in recent times, we have noticed a growing interest in high protein diets, especially in middle and high income countries. Popular regimens such as keto, paleo, and Atkins diets, as well as high protein meal replacements, are widely promoted for various reasons like weight loss, lean muscle preservation, and improved satiety. However, evidence suggests that high intake of animal protein, particularly in the middle aged adults, may not always be beneficial. For example, a study mentioned on the slide by Levin et al. In 2014 found that adults aged 50 to 65 consuming high levels of animal protein had a 75% increase in overall mortality and a fourfold higher risk of cancer mortality compared to those on low protein diets. This highlights the need for caution in promoting high protein regimens. Now let's look at the comorbidities associated with excessive animal protein intake. Starting with cardiovascular disease, diets rich in animal protein, especially processed meats, contribute to higher LDL cholesterol, endothelial dysfunction, and increased risk of stroke and coronary heart disease. Second, type 2 diabetes and metabolic syndrome. High animal protein intake combined with refined carbohydrates and fats has been linked to insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. And the last, cancer. The WHO has classified processed meats as group 1 carcinogens, meaning they are a definitive cause of cancer, particularly colorectal, breast, and prostate cancers. So while high animal protein diets may have short-term benefits for weight loss and other reasons, the long-term health implications are very concerning. On the other hand, plant protein sources provide several advantages. They are low in saturated fats and cholesterol. They're rich in fiber, antioxidants, and phytochemicals, which have protective effect against the disease. Studies also show that plant protein intake is associated with lower blood pressure, better glycemic control, and reduced inflammation. A meta analysis by Huang et al. In 2013 found that plant based diets significantly reduce the risk of coronary heart disease. Another study, the BMG 2020 meta analysis by Nakshi et al., showed that a 3% increase in energy from plant protein was associated with a 5% lower risk of all cause mortality. This strongly supports the idea that plant proteins should be prioritized for long term health. So what we already know about this topic is consumption of high protein diets has been suggested to control body weight and improve cardiometabolic abnormalities. Regular consumption of red meat and high intake of animal proteins have been linked to several health problems. Data on the association between different types of proteins and mortality are conflicting. What this study is going to add on to the existing literature is high intake of total protein is associated with a lower risk of mortality from all causes. Intake of plant protein is associated with a lower risk of mortality from all causes and from cardiovascular diseases. And an additional 3% of energy from plant proteins a day is associated with a 5% lower risk of death from all causes. These findings support current dietary recommendations to increase consumption of plant proteins in a general population. Moving forward, Sansrity will be explaining to us how the study was carried on.
So the method which was used was systematic review and dose-response meta-analysis for design, which followed the PRISMA guidelines. Search was done on databases like PubMed, Scopes, and Web of Sciences. The research paper was taken up to December 2019, and no language or time restriction was taken in consideration. Only peer-reviewed prospective cohort studies on adults was taken. The inclusion criteria included studies on total, animal, or plant protein intake was taken. Outcomes of all-cause cardiovascular or cancer mortality was also taken. Next. The exclusion criteria showed that reviews, ecological studies, CKD, and critical illness specific plant protein sources were excluded. Studies without mortality data or proper effect sizes were also excluded. Data was handled independently by independent extraction by two reviewers. Bias assessed using the Robbins E tool. Statistical analysis, random effect meta-analysis was used, dose response modeling using cubic splines, subgroup and sensitivity analysis for heterogeneity, publication bias checked via funnel plots and Eagles test. Software started version 14.0 and significance set at p less than 0.05. I hand it over back to Shobhiyaa for the results.
We'll look into the results of the study now. So this forest plot summarizes the studies examining the link between total protein intake and all-cause mortality in adults. So each horizontal line represents a study showing its effective size and confidence interval. The pooled analysis shown by the diamond at the bottom indicates the higher total protein intake is associated with a lower risk of death from all causes. In simple words, we can say that higher protein intake is associated with a lower mortality risk, or people who consume more protein overall tend to have a slightly lower risk of dying early. Next, we see that protein intake is separated by source, that's animal and plant. So animal protein on the left and plant protein on the right. On the left, animal protein does not show a significant protective effect. In fact, the overall pooled effect hovers around 1, meaning there's no clear reduction in mortality risk. On the right, plant protein intake is significantly associated with reduced all-cause mortality. So in simple words, we can say the source of protein matters and plant protein seems more beneficial for longevity than animal protein. This slide looks specifically at cancer-related deaths. So again, we see an individual study results and a pooled estimate at the bottom. The overall result shows no significant association between total protein intake and reduced cancer mortality. In other words, we can say that eating more protein, whether high or low, does not seem to clearly influence cancer-related survival. Here again, we have separated the sources to plant protein and animal protein. Um, when like animal protein intake shows no significant effect on the cancer mortality. Similarly, when plant protein intake doesn't show a significant protective effect. This means that neither source of protein has a consistent or measurable impact on reducing the cancer related deaths. So, unlike all cause mortality, the benefits of plant protein do not appear to extend strongly to cancer mortality. This figure shows the dose response curves, plotting how total animal and plant protein intake relates to the mortality from all causes, cardiovascular disease, and cancer. Looking at the topmost row, plant protein shows a clear trend towards lower all cause mortality with higher intake, while animal protein. I'm sorry, let's start over with the slide. This figure shows a dose response curve plotting how total animal and plant protein intake relates to mortality from all causes, cardiovascular disease, and cancer. Looking at the topmost row, plant proteins show a clear trend towards lower all cause mortality with higher intake, while animal protein slightly increases risk at higher levels. The middle row, plant protein is protective against cardiovascular disease mortality, while animal protein intake shows a flat or slightly adverse trend. The last row, the bottom line, cancer mortality does not show a clear pattern for either animal or plant protein. So the message here is plant protein is consistently associated with lower risk of death, particularly from cardiovascular causes, while animal protein does not confer the same benefit. Sansrity will be explaining about the key findings further.
Here are the main key findings from the BMJ 2020 cohort study. First, higher total protein intake overall was associated with lower all-cause mortality. So protein as a nutrient is important for longevity. When we look at the source of protein, plant protein intake was strongly linked to reduced all-cause mortality and cardiovascular disease mortality. Interestingly, no significant association were observed between animal protein intake and mortality from cardiovascular disease or cancer. The protective effect of the plant protein was consistent across different groups, whether we adjusted for BMI, total energy intake, or macronutrient distribution, and even in the people with less than 15 years of follow. So the takeaway is it's not just the amount of protein, but the source of protein that makes a difference in long-term health outcomes. Now, how do these findings compare with previous literature? Other studies on legumes, grains, nuts, the main sources of protein, plant protein, have consistently shown reduction in both all-cause and cardiovascular mortality. On the other hand, some long-term studies have associated high animal protein intake with increased risk of cancer and diabetes. Importantly, diets with meat protein were replaced with non-meat protein, improved insulin sensitivity, showing a clear metabolic benefit. Finally, low carbohydrates, high protein diets were found to be neutral for coronary disease risk in some studies, but they showed clear benefits when the protein were plant-based. Now let's look at the biological mechanism that explains why plant proteins may be more beneficial compared to animal proteins. Animal proteins are rich in amino acids such as tryptophan, phenylalanine, tyrosine, and choline. These are important, but they are also the main precursors of uremic toxins. When these are metabolized in the gut, they lead to increased production of harmful compounds. These promote lower short-chain fatty acid production, reduce saccharolytic bacteria, more protein fermentation, and increase uremic toxin. On the other hand, plant protein contains much lower amounts of these amino acid precursors. When plant proteins are fermented in the gut, they encourage the growth of beneficial saccharolytic bacteria, increase carbohydrate fermentation, and reduces uremic toxin production. So the metabolic end product of the plant versus animal protein are fundamentally different, and this difference contributes directly to the health outcomes. Summarizing the evidences, Plant protein intake is linked with the lower IGF levels, unlike animal protein. Since high IGF-1 is associated with the increased risk of age-related disease, including cancer, this is an important protective factor. Plant protein are also associated with improvement in blood pressure, waist circumference, and body weight, and overall body composition. Compared to animal protein, they lower plasma cholesterol. Additionally, when plant protein undergoes gut fermentation, they produce fewer harmful metabolites. This means less ammonia, amines, phenol, tryptophan metabolites, and sulfides are released, which reduces toxic load and supports gut and metabolic health. Here we see the role of IGF-1 or insulin growth factor 1 in cell regulation. Under normal conditions on the left, IGF-1 binds to its receptor IGF-1R and regulates both proliferation and apoptosis. This helps maintain a balance in normal cells. However, when IGF-1 levels are chronically elevated, this same signaling pathway promotes uncontrolled proliferation and inhibits apoptosis in transformed cells, which increase the risk of cancers and progression. So, dietary factors that influence IGF-1 levels becomes very important in long-term health outcomes. Next. Plant proteins are not just a source of amino acids. They also contain bioactive peptides. These peptides have been shown to exert antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial, and antihypertensive properties. They can also help regulate appetite by reducing food intake and lowering plasma cholesterol. Amino acid profile differences are very critical here. Plant proteins generally have lower lysine and histidine, which leads to lower ApoB lipoprotein and reduces cardiovascular diseases risk. They are richer in arginine, pyruvate precursors, which enhances glucagon secretion, reduce insulin levels, decrease fat storage or lipogenesis, and improve LDL receptor. This unique profile supports better metabolic health. This chart compares the amino acid composition of animal and plant-based food. Animal proteins like egg, milk, chicken, or beef tend to be higher in lysine, methionine, and histidine. These amino acids can raise IGF-1, ApoB, and pro-inflammatory markers. Plant sources like legume, grain, nuts, vegetables, and fruits are richer in arginine, glycine, and glutamine. These support lipid metabolism, reduce IGF-1 signaling, and have protective effect against chronic diseases. So the amino acid balance is very different depending on whether protein comes from animal or plant. Summarizing the evidences, the conclusion is association with mortality. Higher intake of animal protein, especially red and processed meat, is linked with higher all-cause mortality. In contrast, higher plant protein intake is associated with lower mortality. Amino acid profile. Animal protein promotes pathways linked to IGF-1 and inflammation, while plant protein enhances lipid metabolism and lower IGF-1 pathway. Bioactive compounds. Animal protein lack protective phytochemicals and often include harmful compounds like hemine and nitrates. Plant proteins are rich in antioxidant, fiber, polyphenol, and anti-inflammatory compounds. Metabolic effects. Animal protein increase LDL cholesterol, IGF-1, and insulin resistance risk. Plant protein decreases LDL, lower IGF-1, improve insulin sensitivity, and reduce lipogenesis. CVD and cancer risk. Processed meat are strongly associated with cardiovascular diseases and cancer, while plant protein is protective. Public health strategy. Because of these differences, global health guidelines advises reducing animal protein intake. Plant proteins are promoted as a practical and scalable dietary shift. Next. Now that we have understood the benefits of plant protein, let's look at how we can actually meet our daily requirements through a simple balanced plate. Let's begin with a breakfast. For a sedentary adult, the daily protein requirement is about 0.8 grams per kilogram of the body weight. That means a 60 kg adult needs roughly 48 grams of protein per day. Here, we see an example of plant-based breakfast. 2 green moong dal chillas with green chutney along with tea. This gives around 14 grams of protein just from the chillas, plus another 4 grams from the tea. Important is that pulses like moong dal provide not just protein but also fiber, micronutrients, and zero cholesterol. Unlike animal protein sources such as eggs or processed meats, this makes them a cleaner, heart-friendly options to start the day with. Moving on to lunch. Here we have a cup of cooked dal, a half cup of soya chunk curry, two small fulkas, and some fresh salad. Together, this meal provides nearly 36 grams of protein. Notice how soya chunks alone add 12 grams of protein compared to chicken, but without the saturated fat. Whole wheat fulkas also contribute, showing how even grains add up. The beauty of the plant proteins meal is there is diversity. Dal, soya, and whole grains combine to cover all essential amino acids. Unlike animal protein, plant protein meals come with antioxidant and dietary fiber, which support the long-term health and digestion. Next. Finally, for dinner, a cup of dal palak gives 10 grams of protein. A serving of soya or tofu gives you another 10 grams. And a multigrain roti adds 4 grams more. With mixed vegetable sabji, the total comes close to 27 grams. By the end of the day, with just these three balanced plant-based meals, an average sedentary model can easily reach the recommended protein intake. The key takeaway is this: plant proteins not only meet your daily needs, but they also bring along fiber, vitamins, minerals, and disease-preventing phytonutrients, things animal proteins lack. To wrap up, here are some simple take home points for making plant proteins work in our everyday diet. First, make sure to eat a wide variety of plant based food. Mixing and matching across the day ensures we get all the essential amino acids that our body needs. Second, if you're choosing plant based milks, go for the ones fortified with calcium and vitamin D to cover those extra nutrients. Third, experiment with a different whole grain beans and lentils. Together, they don't just give protein but also complex carbohydrate, iron, zinc, and B12, B vitamins. Another tip is to use nutritional yeast. It's tasty and it's also a good source of vitamin B12, which is usually found in animal food. Don't forget your nuts and seeds. They're nutrient dense and gives us healthy fats, protein, and minerals like magnesium. And finally, include soya-based food. One cup of soya chunks can carry up to 41 grams of protein. Normal kidney bean salad is up to 30 grams of protein. So soya is a special because it's a complete protein containing all 9 essential amino acids, just like animal protein. So the takeaway is clear. With variety, balance, and a few smart choices, plant-based diet can fully meet protein needs and provide extra health benefits. Thank you. Next, Sneha will take
Thank
over.
yeah. Thank you, Sansrity and Shobhiyaa, for the wonderful presentation. So now we have seen via the presentation and the article through the article that the dietary intake of total animal and plant protein and the risk of all causes and cancer mortality. So the global shift from animal-based protein sources to plant-based foods such as legumes, fruits, vegetables, and whole grain offers significant health and environmental benefits. The dietary transition contributes to environmental conservation by reducing greenhouse gas emission, land and freshwater use, and water pollution. Thus, promoting plant-based protein intake not only supports individual health through improved metabolic and cardiovascular outcomes, but also ensures sustainability for the planet. So, before starting with the Q&A question rounds, I would like to request the audience, in case of any queries, please drop your message in the chat box and we'll be discussing it in the next session with evidence. Okay, so based on the PAN WhatsApp group and the previous JC meetings, we have collected some questions. Um, I would like to request Shobhiyaa and Sansrity to answer these questions. Okay, so the first question is, being a vegetarian, I've always heard that protein in meat is better protein and it is good. So is it a myth or
Yes, it's a myth. So the idea that meat protein is somehow better or superior is a real misconception. Yes, animal protein are complete proteins, but plant proteins can be just as complete when we combine foods, for example, cereals with pulses or legumes with nuts and seeds. Our body doesn't require all amino acid in a single food. It pulls them throughout the day. What really matters, what really matters here is the package the protein comes in. Animal protein usually comes with cholesterol, saturated fat, and other higher oxidative stress. In contrast, plant protein brings fiber and antioxidants and phytochemicals that support long-term health. So, with the right combinations like dal with rice or chapati with hummus, vegetarians can meet their protein needs fully without any downsides of the animal protein.
okay? Thank you so much, Sansrity. Um, the next question, what food products in a plant-based diet can be included to help boost my metabolism?
I can try answering that. So, to start off, I must say plant based diets naturally increase the metabolic rate by 10 to 16%. So, this could be mainly because of the thermic effect of the foods. I can list a few like protein rich plant foods like beans, lentils, nuts, and seeds, which require more energy to digest, ultimately leading to better metabolism. Also, fibrous fruits like broccoli, spinach, cabbage, and leafy greens have high fiber, which improves digestion and keeps the metabolism active. Further, whole grains like oats, quinoa, and millets have a slow energy release mechanism, which makes the body work harder to break them down. Spicy food like chili and black pepper contain capsaicin that can increase the heat production and increase the metabolism. Further, even uh, green tea with caffeine, which has caffeine, can stimulate fat oxidation and raise the metabolic rate slightly.
Thank you, Shobhya, for the answer. It was really helpful. The next question, I take protein powder every day after my workout. This satisfies my everyday protein requirement. Do I still need a plant-based protein diet, or I can go along with the protein powder?
That's a good question, actually, and I'm pretty sure many of them would have this concern. So, plant protein, a protein powder could be like a good solution for quick recovery after workouts. It gives the muscles the fast amino acids. But whole plant proteins like beans, lentils, quinoa, nuts, and seeds provide extra benefits like fiber, vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients that the protein powders usually lack. So, this might be something that gets missed out when the person opts for protein powder. A variety of plant proteins also ensure you get all the essential amino acids throughout the day. Protein powders are a supplement and can't be a substitute. They can't replace the long term health benefits of the real food. So, the best strategy maybe could be to combine both, like protein powder right after workouts, and also to have consider having a food plant protein for daily meals.
Okay. Thank you, Shobhya, for the answer. The next question, protein is same, so then how does it make a difference if it's animal protein or a plant protein?
Yes, protein at a molecular level is same, but it does make a difference from what source we get it. So this simple thing can be explained by a nutritional package theory. Protein never comes alone. It comes as a part of some package. So the animal protein package, the source where the source is animal, brings like saturated fat, cholesterol, heme, and no fibers or antioxidant. These increase inflammation, cardiovascular risk, and metabolic stress. In contrast, the plant protein package comes with fiber, antioxidant, phytochemicals, complex carbs, and minerals like potassium and magnesium, all which supports the gut health and reduces inflammation and even promotes longevity. So it's not just about protein or the molecular structure of the protein, it's about the package it comes with. And plants clearly gives us the healthier package.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sansriti. It was insightful. So thank you very much, Shobhya and Sansriti, for the wonderful presentation. It was both highly informative and engaging, and we truly appreciate the effort you put it into making it so insightful. Recently, we have released the omega-3 physician guidelines, so everyone can check it in our websites. And you can follow our WhatsApp groups, Instagram, and LinkedIn for further updates. And the commencing JC will be in the month of November. Thank you.
Thank you, Sneha. Thank you, Sansriti. Thank you, Shobhiyaa. Okay, then we'll
Thank you,
meet
ma'am.
on, yes, we'll meet on the
Thank you,
next
ma'am.
JC with an interesting topic. If any topic, if the audience have any topic that we need to cover in our next JCs, please drop them in the chat box so that we can cover in the next list. Okay. Is there any queries? Yes, or else we'll just end the meeting. Okay, thank you all. We'll meet in the next JC. Thank you. Bye bye.